Hi, this is Gary with MACMOST.com. Let me show you alternatives to minimizing windows on your Mac. So I know a lot of Mac users are in the habit of minimizing windows when they no longer need them. This clears them away so they have more space on their screen for other windows, and they can easily bring that window back without having to close the document or quit the app. But a lot of longtime Mac users, like myself, never minimize windows. We use other techniques to get windows out of the way. First, let's talk about what minimizing is and what it isn't. A lot of people mistakenly say that they're minimizing an app, but you don't minimize apps, you minimize windows. For instance, here I've got 3 Pages windows, 3 separate documents opened up in Pages at the same time. If I click the yellow button here to minimize, you can see it minimizes down to the dock, but the other 2 Pages windows are still here. So I certainly didn't minimize Pages. Pages isn't minimized. It's the window that's minimized. But it's easy to see how that mistake is made because in a lot of apps, you only have one window open. Like here with Notes, typically you just have one Notes window open. A lot of other apps like Mail, for instance, are the same. So when you minimize the one Notes window, it feels like you're minimizing Notes. Now, typical situation is you've got a ton of windows on your desktop. I'm going to use Mission Control by using Control up arrow, and you can see all the windows here. There are 3 Safari windows, 3 Pages windows, and a Notes window here. So it looks like quite a jumble when they're all together. I can get some of these out of the way by minimizing them and then having more space for the rest. And then if I look in the dock here, I can see all the minimized windows and one by one bring them back if I want. You can also bring them back in the window menu. I can minimize this Pages window, go to Window here, and I could see the little diamond there indicating that that is minimized, and I can select it and it will bring it back. But what you can't do is bring it back by using the app switcher. So if I minimize this one Pages window, I have 2 other Pages windows there. If I use the app switcher and I go to say Notes and then I go back to Pages, it only just brings the existing Pages windows to the front. It doesn't bring the minimized one up. It doesn't unminimize. Now, before I show you true alternatives to minimizing, I do want to show one way you can change how minimize works that can make things a little bit better for some. Notice when I minimize a lot of windows that they all go to the right side of the dock. So they're all here. Instead of doing that, there's a setting. If you go to System Settings and then you go to Desktop and Dock, look for Minimize Windows into Application Icon. Turn that on. Now that's not going to change the existing ones. Let's bring them all back here. But now, if I were to, say, minimize the Safari window, instead of going to the right side of the dock, it goes into the Safari icon. In other words, it doesn't take up any space at all in the dock. I can click and hold Safari here, and I can see the list of windows and which ones are minimized with that little diamond next to them. And I can also do that in the Window menu in Safari, and I can bring them back that way. But otherwise, I don't end up with a long list of minimized windows in the dock. By the way, if you find these videos valuable, consider joining the more than 2,000 others that support MACMOST at Patreon. You get exclusive content, course discounts, and more. You can read about it at macmost.com/Patreon. Okay, so if a lot of Mac users like myself don't minimize, what do we do when we've got a lot of windows open? So I think the first strategy we use is to actually hide instead of minimizing. Any app, you can go to the Apps menu here, and you'll see Hide, and it's usually Command H. And this allows you to quickly hide an app. So this will hide all of the windows of the app. So I have 3 Safari windows here. If I use Command H, all 3 of them are hidden. For an app where there's just one window, like this Notes app right here, hiding and minimizing are virtually the same. Just a Command H and you've hidden it. Now bringing it back can be done by either switching back to the app with the app switcher. So Command and Tab, and then continue to hold Command down and Tab to get the app you want, and then release Command. And then by switching back to the app, all of the windows now are unhidden. So hiding an app hides all the windows of the app. Unhiding it unhides all the windows of the app. But you could also unhide by doing anything you would normally do to launch the app. So if I hide Safari and say I go to launch it again by going to the dock, if it's already launched, it's just hidden, it basically unhides it. You don't have to worry about whether it's running or not or hidden or not. One action will either run or unhide the app. So I can hide it here, and let's say I use Spotlight to launch apps. If I simply use Spotlight to launch Safari, Safari's already running, but doing the same action to run it, well, just unhide it. Now, another thing you can do is quit the app. But wait a minute, I've got 3 different pages, documents open in 3 different windows. If I quit, how am I going to reopen all of those? Well, it does it automatically. In Pages here, if I quit, just use that quick Command Q, and then I launch Pages again. Notice how it reopens all of those documents, all of those windows, and they return to the exact same position. It takes a second or two longer than unhiding, but really not that long at all. Most apps launch and reopen documents almost instantly. Yes, there are going to be apps like video editors and things like Photoshop and all that take a significant amount of time to launch. So for those, hiding is a better option. But for a lot of apps, quitting works just as well. For instance, here I am in Notes. If I quit Notes and relaunch it, you can see it really didn't take much more time than hiding it and unhiding it. It even works for apps that don't have documents. For instance, in Safari, you don't have documents. I've got locations. I've got 3 different locations opened up in 3 different windows. But yet, if I quit Safari, all of those are gone. Safari isn't running anymore. But if I launch it again, it's going to bring those windows back in the same position and reload those pages. But what if that's not happening for you? What if when you quit and you relaunch the app, none of the documents come back? Well, it's probably because you've changed the setting. Go into System Settings and then go to Desktop and Dock. Look for Close Windows when quitting an application. If that's turned on, then when you quit, it's basically the same thing as individually closing each window and then quitting the app. If you've got it off, then basically the app just quits. When you relaunch the app, all of the windows resume where they were. Now, what if you just want to get one window out of the way? Well, then you think minimizing is the only option. But you could also just close the window. Like I said before, it doesn't really take long for most apps and most documents to reopen. Instead of minimizing, just click the red button and close it, or use Command W for close, and it closes it. It's not hard to reopen it. You can go here to File, Open Recent, and chances are it's the top item here. And you can see it opens it pretty fast. You could also go to the Apple menu and look at recent items and find it right here. You can even go into the dock here, click and hold, and then you get recent documents listed here. So you can select that one that way and reopen it. There's so many different ways, and for a lot of apps and a lot of documents, it's going to take about the same amount of time it would take to minimize the window and then bring it back. Now, another option you've got is to use a mission control to actually create multiple desktop spaces. So I'm going to use Control Up arrow. There are also trackpad gestures for this. And you get mission control here, and I've just got the one desktop. But I can click the plus button at the top right and add a second desktop. So if I wanted to get, say, this window out of the way, I could drag it to another desktop. And maybe this window is also in the way. And now when I go back to the desktop, I don't have those 2 windows here on this desktop. They are here on this desktop. And I can use Control left and right arrows to go between the desktops very easily. In fact, if I were to switch to an app and there's no open window here, like Notes, Notes is on desktop 1. If I actually click on Notes in the dock, it'll go to desktop 1 because that's where the one window for Notes is located. I could even use the app switcher, and if I switch to Notes, it's going to take me back there. I don't even have to think about the fact that it's on its separate space. So this is another way of thinking about having lots of windows and not enough screen space. If you've got a Safari window and a Pages window for a project you're working on, you can have them on one desktop, and then you can have other windows on another desktop. If you're doing research and have a Safari window open to a web page and a Pages window open for taking notes, you can have those together on one desktop, and they won't get in the way of other things you've got going on another desktop space. And another way to handle this is just to use full screen, which is basically the same as a desktop space, except there's only one window on that desktop. In the View menu, you'll find Enter Full Screen, which is simply the globe or FN key and F. And when I do that, the current window will go into a full screen space. So Control Up arrow shows me Mission Control. And I can see this space here is just Notes. There is no desktop for it. It is just the Notes window as its own space, which means that Notes is there all by itself. Nothing is in its way. And on the other spaces, Notes isn't getting in the way of these windows. And like before, if I were to use the app switcher to go to Notes, it knows to go to that full screen space. The same thing for switching to the app in any other way, like using the dock. And of course, you can use split view as well if you prefer. So for instance, I can hover over the green button here and say I want to go full screen, but just left here. And then I'm going to choose this Pages document here for the right. So now I've got a split view space, which is like full screen, but 2 windows. It's important to remember, just like with minimizing, full screen isn't about an app. It's about a window. So this is a full screen window, and this is a split view with 2 windows in it. So now I've gotten these 2 windows out of the way. I can do research in Safari and take notes here in Pages. And these 2 windows are not getting in the way anymore with whatever I've got left over here on my desktop space. So if you're using a lot of different apps with a lot of different windows on your Mac and you're looking for better ways to handle all those windows other than minimizing, there are a lot of different tools for you to use. Hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, click the thumbs up button below to let me know. I publish new tutorials each weekday. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out.